everyone. Good evening. It is Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific. I'm Candace May, and this is Mary Denise.
Hey, everyone. How's everybody going? How's everybody doing today? How are you, Candace?
I'm doing really good, Denise. Mary Denise. So Candace May and Mary Denise, we're your guides for reframing your life, digging the gold from your past, and designing the life of your dreams. Welcome to Unshackle Your Voice, so you can be seen and heard with confidence. We're so glad you're here, whether it's live or on recording. I hope that you'll join in on the conversation. If you accept StreamYard to give permissions to post, we can pull up your comments and pull you right into the conversation with us, and we would love to do that. So I'm Candace May, owner of Candace May Training and Services, where I do coaching and training. I speak about relationships, communication, attitude, anti-bullying, workplace safety, and operational analysis.
That's awesome.
How about you, Mary Denise?
I'm Mary Denise, and I am the owner and founder of Mitchell Leadership Services and Consulting, Inc., which is a boutique woman-owned consulting and coaching firm based in Phoenix. And I work with clients in the public, private, and the nonprofit sectors. And my company is about transformation, leadership, and results. And I primarily help people take their next steps after workplace bullying and discrimination. And one of the things that brings Candace May and I together, and I'm really excited about this, is our shared interest as certified speakers, trainers, and coaches with the John Maxwell team, as well as being empowered mentoring life guides, and we are also certified DISC behavior consultants. And so we're able to really help people peel back the layers that keep them from being heard and seen. And so we only have about 30 minutes with you guys. So we are going to do everything we can to give you everything that we have so that you can take some of these applications and apply them to your own life so that it can be a much better life and a much more fulfilling life. And last week, Candace May and I talked about some really cool stuff, but I'm going to turn it back over to Candace May because she can explain it so much better, because the interdependent, I've really been focusing on that and like really looking at relationships from a different perspective, which I hope a lot of you did too. So Candace, take it away.
Yay! First off, I want to give due credit. We're pulling material from the book Safe People by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. I have great respect for them. I did a lot of work with them over the years, and I'm in their boundaries program, which is really, they've got boundaries in marriage, boundaries for children, boundaries in dating, tons of boundary books. So I love them, and this material really is credited to them. I'm just sharing this information with you because it's powerful and it's life-changing, and I want to encourage you to really grow. So last week we talked about independence versus interdependence. We stated that interdependence, where we're dependent on each other, but we also have our own autonomous identity, is the healthiest way to be, rather than totally dependent on someone else or codependent. So if you didn't catch that, go to YouTube and you can catch those last week's show, or scroll down in either one of our pages. So we're designed to connect with other people. And when we connect with other people, we get hurt in relationships, but we also heal in relationships. So a lot of times we get hurt in relationships and we back away and we isolate ourselves. And I want to encourage us not to do that we find safe people that we can connect with, rather than staying connected to toxic people or people who are unsafe. Often we have a pattern of people that we're drawn to, probably from the background that we grew up in and the circumstances we grew up in. And we're just automatically in our subconscious drawn to these personality types or people type. So I really want you to not only take what we're talking about tonight and looking at the people around you, but I want you to look at yourself. And I want you to dig deep and ask, do I do these things? Am I an unsafe person, or am I a safe person for the people around me? And it's important to also remember that people could be very safe for you, and maybe they have a tragedy or something happen in their life and they become overwhelmed and they become a little unsafe for a little while. So not everyone's perfect, but we need to be aware, and we need to develop discernment of how to determine who is a safe person and who is not a safe person. This is important in work, when we're hiring people, when we're hiring staff, that we're understanding, are they a safe person or an unsafe person? Because those unsafe people are the narcissists and the bullies and those people who really cause a lot of damages to people's lives and to companies and their reputation and their financial and books as they get sued, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So as we, knowing that we don't like, knowing what we don't like can help us define what we do like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we say, what do you want? I don't know what I want, but what do you want for dinner? I don't know what I want for dinner, but I know I don't want Mexican. I know I don't want spaghetti, right? But I don't know what I want. Okay, so let's start out here. Let's start out by saying what we don't want. How would you describe an unsafe person?
For me, I would describe an unsafe person as someone that has no consideration or concern for my safety or my well-being, both emotionally and physically. I think that unsafe people are the root of all evil for the most part, because they can leave a lasting impression that's not a good impression. And some people, if they're not strong enough emotionally to handle what these people dish out, they crumble and they're scarred for life and have a hard time with their own relationships and figuring out what to do next. I've seen so many people that have had marriages implode because whatever's going on at work, it's just so much, right? And what do we do when we come home to our significant others? At least when I had a significant other in my life, I would come home and I would complain about what was happening at work and what I was going through. And God bless his soul, he would listen. But, in retrospect, when I look back on it now, it's like, why didn't I do something different? Why did I just complain all the time? Because it didn't help the situation at all. So these
because you probably didn't know what to do.
Didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother topic. That's when you find a coach and you find a counselor and you find help and you find ways to get help. Yes. Yep. But learning this, how to identify an unsafe person is good, because then you can avoid them. Remove them from your life. So what are some things might happen that maybe you'll hear him say, maybe you could say about an unsafe person, she doesn't listen to me, or he doesn't listen to me. She's so perfect, she can't understand my problems. Have you ever had anybody like that in your life? They're so perfect, they just don't get it. Or you can never do anything good enough. It's either you're not good enough or you've done something wrong. It's always something. You had a manager like that? Micromanager, yeah, mm-hmm. Sure. He seems so distant. I felt alone. He makes promises but doesn't follow through. She's condemning and judgmental. She's always angry at me for something. Either I did do something or I didn't do something. And I tend to be my worst when I'm around that person. I cannot trust that person. Those things sound familiar?
Absolutely.
So all of these comments leave us feeling unsafe. They leave us unvalidated. It's really not okay to be in an unsafe workplace. There's a lot of focus on physical safety in the workplace. We have OSHA laws. We have all of these regulations that we have to follow to make sure the physical safety is in place. We have hazmat. But what happens about our emotional safety? Who's overseeing our emotional safety in the workplace? I don't see a lot of regulation in that. So, and there's still, there's a term, it's called psychological safety. So we have workplace safety, physical safety, psychological safety. That's your emotional welfare. And This is the foundation of trust. This is where you can come to work and you can share your opinion and feel that you're heard. You can feel that people value you. And they say, Mary Denise, what do you think about this? They're seeking out your opinion versus you come in and you go, hey, I got an idea. And all of a sudden, that's not your job. And how dare you even consider such a thing? And, like, do your job, quit, it becomes a problem, right?
Yep.
Or you're overstepping your boundaries. That's not safe. We need to feel valued. We need to be able to feel like we're contributing more to the workplace.
When I first heard you talk about the psychological safety, I had never thought of it in that term with the psychological safety. And I feel like we need to do something to create a movement to bring that into the workplace, because that's exactly what it is. Workers need some safety nets with the psychology of everything that goes on. I can't tell you how many people I've been talking to in recent weeks that have been pouring out their stories about the different types of behaviors that they are experiencing at work. And some of them, like, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I had to take leave, I had to be out of work for 3 months because it was just so stressful. And if we had that psychological safety net and that training and that type of a division within OSHA, can you imagine how the world would run in a workplace? It would be so much better, more productive.
Well, I think OSHA has their hands full with the physical side, but I know Sherma and all of the other HR sides, they're aware of this issue. I have training material on psychological safety. I have posters that can go out. I have stuff for leadership to be trained on, as well as to share with the average worker in the workplace to share what that looks like to develop. And that's where the strength and the power really comes in when we're developing growth environments. We're developing that environment to be curious, to speak out, to share what's going on. I'm going to check my Facebook page really quick because I don't know if I'm going to see comments or not.
Yeah, I see some comments. I just can't pull them over.
Oh, well, we got to fix that. Well, you're getting the comments. I'm not. So if you want to read any of them, I can't pull them up. I don't see them.
There's Chris Coate, who has said, hi there, sharing and understanding our attachment motivation is liberating, and a toxic workplace can land you in the ER. Absolutely, Chris.
Wow, yes, sure can. I mean, I know people who almost committed suicide because of the toxic work environment and the bullying of their boss. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So there's different kinds of leadership styles. And the old style was developed back in the industrial age, and it was the command and control style. If you think about it, we had factories that popped up and people came to work from the farms into the factories, and they didn't know how to use the machines. And so they had people they trained on the machines, and they became the line supervisors. And it was do as I say, just do as I say. And people it was a rote job, just repeated over and over again. And that was command and control. And that kind of spread and became the model. And for many, many years, it was all about managing people. And we get into micromanaging then, right? We're not leading anybody, we're managing things.
Yep.
And then we both have the mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell, and he started in the 70s talking about leadership instead of just managing. And leading people by influence, winning their hearts, finding ways to motivate them, putting them in their strengths rather than just micromanaging the job. And there's a huge difference. One is empowering people and valuing people. One is more demeaning and just, your manual labor, nothing more. You don't have much to contribute. So do you see the contrast here of the different styles?
Yeah.
So here's an interesting point I just wanted to point out. For anybody who happens to be faith-oriented, you may find it interesting. I've heard people numerous times over the years say, "Oh, Christians think they're perfect, and they're all these things. They're not perfect, but they say they're Christians and they should be perfect." And I'm not going to church because of that. But I just want to let you know, God tells us Himself in the Bible in Isaiah 29:13, "My people are far away. They don't listen to me. Where are they?" And Joshua 22:16, "My people are unfaithful. They're not with me. They're, doing other things." Deuteronomy 8:14 and Psalms 36:2 talks about how proud and perfectionistic Christians are. These are not God's ways. 1 John 4:20, my people are unloving. Romans 2:1, they're judgmental. So we're all perfectly imperfect humans, right? So
yeah, we are. You said it all right there. I mean, there's nothing to refute.
So let's be frank. We don't get a lot of training in character discernment. We tend to look at people from the outside, right? The person with the most money, the person with the best dressed clothes, they're the ones who get attention. They're the ones who get special treatment. If they're humorous and they're funny, they look really good or they have status of some kind. They have great accomplishments, maybe a high education, or if you're in the church, you may be judged on how many religious activities you do, which really has nothing to do with your value. It really doesn't. Because we get these people, their resume looks great, we hire them into the job, and then we have to deal with the inside of the person, their personality, their emotional issues. And that's when we find out that they're micromanagers or they're bullies or they're whatever the issues might be. They can't finish the job. They're abandoners.
And that's where I've got to take a minute to feed a thought into our audience's mind. When you are hiring someone, it's important to do those workplace assessments. I've been to a few interviews in the recent, like within the last 6 months, and I had to take an assessment of some kind to determine if I was going to be a good fit for the company or not. And apparently, since I didn't get hired, I must not have been a good fit based on the results of that. But it is something that is important, because if you're a shady type of boss, you're not going to want to hire people that have integrity, right? You're not going to want to hire people that are going to uphold the standards and the values and the rules. But if you're a great, above board employer, then you're going to want to hire that type of person. So having these assessments is really good. And I know I've had people laugh about, what is that going to tell me? But when I read them their results, when they've read them on their own, and then we sit down and we talk about them when we do the disc, they're like, oh, wow, this pegged me to a T, so it's important to be able to do that.
Yeah. So what Mary Denise is talking about is the John Maxwell DISC assessments that we both offer, and they're great for individuals. We have different focuses on them, but we can get into all that on another time. Just private message us and we can talk about that. But they can be used for hiring people to find out what their strengths are and if they're going to be a cultural fit. And besides the assessments, we also want to discern their character. Mm-hmm. What are their values? How are they going to really treat people? Do they value people? And how do they live that out in their day-to-day life? So in the movies, it's really easy to see. We've got good guys are usually in white, bad guys are dressed in black, or there's some other foreshadowing piece that tells us this is a bad guy, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't really see that in life. I mean, I don't, I have good intuition. I can pick it up. But overall, you don't always see these warning signs. Mm-hmm. So unsafe people can appear very attractive and promising, and their character problems can be very subtle. Would you agree with that?
I do. I agree completely.
So while there's many different kinds of unsafe people, I thought of three, and I think you have two that you thought of, Mary, right? So the three that I was going to talk about tonight were abandoners, critics, and irresponsibles, and those are the three that are characterized in the book Safe People. Let's talk about your 11. Do you want to talk about those first?
I actually, and they are, I've been doing a lot of studying on this just because of a project I'm working on. But there's 7 types of people that you can't change them. You cannot change them no matter how hard you try. You basically have to just pray that they wake up one day and realize that what they're doing is wrong. And so the first person that I want to talk about is the victim-minded person. This is the person who thinks that the world owes them everything and that nothing ever goes wrong. nothing that ever goes wrong is their fault. Like it's everybody else's fault. It's not theirs. They have no responsibility for it. Then you've got the deceptive person. And the deceptive person, they're the ones that like to play the tricks on you. They gaslight you. They make you think that things are going great, but then when you least expect it, the hammer falls.
So can you define gaslight? Because not everybody knows that term.
Gaslighting is basically, how's the best way to describe it? Gaslighting is basically just saying things that make you think that you're going crazy, right?
Yeah.
You're like, wait, did that really just happen? Or
Crazy making.
maybe I'm overthinking this. Like I lived in the world of gaslighting for years.
It's a horrible place to be.
It's a horrible place to be. So then you've got the disloyal person, and this is the person that plays both sides of the fence. To me, this is one of the dangerous people because you put your trust in them and you think that they're safe. You think that you can trust them with your secrets, and then before you know it, everybody knows your business, and you're like, wait a minute, I thought you were my friend, right?
Sounds like a gossiper.
It does sound like a gossiper. And then you've got your self-righteous person. These are the people that I call holier than thou because they think that their way is the only way and that they're better than anyone or anything. Nothing. Their poop don't stink, basically.
Right. It's too good to know what I'm going through, right? I can never measure up. Yeah.
And then you've got the desperate. Now, to me, the desperate person is the most dangerous person because when their backs are up against a wall, they will do anything and everything and whatever it takes to get what they want. They'll run their mother over with their own car if they have to get what they want. And then you've got the doubters. I used to fall in that category of the doubters because I questioned everything. And I mean,
Doubting Thomas.
I was a doubting Thomas. I mean, when I questioned everything, I questioned everything. And I was very suspicious, even of good intentions. And it took me a while to break that habit, but I did. So if I could break it, anybody could break it. And then
okay, so you said 7 types of people that cannot be changed. I guess everybody has hope.
Yeah, but I also did say that a person has to want to change.
That's true.
Nobody can change me. Like they couldn't change me. I had to dig deep within myself to change that. But there's no way that my family or my other employers or anybody could have ever changed me until I took it upon myself to recognize where my flaws were, where I needed to improve myself. So
sometimes I do that too, and I think there's areas I have to grow and I dig in, but I can't do it by myself. I have to rely on a higher power. I have to rely on God to really make the changes because sometimes I see I'm stuck somewhere and I can't figure out what it is. And other times, maybe I know what it is, and I just can't get past it. So with a lot of prayer and meditation, and my mind starts to change. So
your last person is the quitter, and this is the saddest one of all because they give up at the slightest inkling of a problem or a challenge. They start things and then quit because things get too hard. Now, all of us have had one of these type of personalities living within us. It's just that there's some people that allow that personality to dominate everything. And that's what makes them an unsafe person.
And people don't grow just like a child. A baby comes into the world and grows and doesn't really have to do anything but eat and sleep, and it grows. So sometimes we think emotionally or, you're so immature, just grow up, Sometimes we think over time we'll mature. That is not going to happen unless you consciously and intentionally put your attention on the growth areas or on your strengths and grow them into something bigger and better, right? So,
and Chris, let me read what Chris just said. Chris said, DISC and predictive index have been useful and illuminating. High DI here.
So DI, those are 2 of the personality styles in DISC. There's a D, which is very direct and dominant. They just want quick bullet points of how everything is. Don't give them all the details. They can't stand it. They're not very social. Like they'll walk up and jump right into business. Hey, this is what I need from you. It's on Monday morning. And if you're you're outgoing and people oriented, and you're going to want to be like, how was your weekend? Oh, that's awesome. And so to an I, So anyway, for those who don't know what a DI is, it's 2 of the traits of the personality traits. So the 3 that they mention in the book, Safe People, were abandoners, critics, and irresponsibles. And those fall into, those types you talked about kind of fall into here. So the abandoners start a relationship, but they can't finish it. That kind of sounds like the quitters, right? Mm-hmm. They leave when they leave when you need them the most, and things start to get a little difficult. Mm-hmm. And this, when they leave, it really kind of destroys us. It hurts us greatly, and causes a lot of abandonment issues and a broken heart, right? And that's why some people just completely shut down, and they try to be an island, and you can't function, because we need people to heal. Mm-hmm. So if this happened to you, you could feel depressed, and you could develop some compulsive behaviors, right? Mm-hmm. If it's left undealt with, that's when we really kind of lose our sense of needing other people. When we go, I don't need anybody, I'm great all by myself, mm-hmm. and I don't need anybody for anything. We may have been desensitized. So it's time for us to really look at our hearts at that point too, and say, I was designed to need people. God put that need in my heart when he created us. Mm-hmm. So if I'm feeling I don't need somebody, then maybe my heart's a little broken and needs a little bit of love, right? Mm-hmm. And again, you're going to heal in relationships. So you don't want to find those toxic people. That's why we're having this conversation. You want to figure out how to find safe people. Mm-hmm. And then there's the critics. The critics are the ones who, they'd rather tell you what's wrong and nitpick at you than build a connection with you, right? And I think you talked about the self-righteous might have fallen into that category. Mm-hmm. For the list of people you picked, yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah. Deceptive might kick in there too some, but yeah. So the critic, they really speak the truth with no love at all. Those people who say, I'm going to be brutally honest. Well, why do you need to be brutally honest? Mm-hmm. Can't you be lovingly honest? Let's think about that. And yeah, that's the abandoners. Then there's, that's the critics. The critics. They're clear thinkers, though. So you might be drawn to somebody who's a critic because they're very crystal clear in their thinking patterns. And they could be really good people to go to for information, right? So everybody has a good side to them and a bad side. It's not all good and all bad. It's not black and white. Everybody's all got pieces of this in us, mm-hmm. and we're all mixed, good and bad. So just know that if you're connected with a critic, you may find yourself guilt-ridden and constantly being compliant to do what they want so that you're not criticized, mm-hmm. and you feel very unable to make mistakes, or you're going to pay for it, right?
Yep.
And then the third category was the irresistibles.
Irresponsibles.
We are
irresistibly irresponsible.
Exactly. Yeah. The irresponsible people, they don't take care of themselves, and they don't take care of anybody else. And they really have problems delaying gratification. They pretty much want it now, and they don't care about tomorrow. They're not thinking about tomorrow. They're thinking about today, kind of like grown-up children. And doesn't this sound a lot like maybe an addict, either a drug addict, an alcoholic, maybe a gambler, or sex addiction, or something along these lines? They have no control. And for every time there's somebody who's an irresponsible, you're going to find an enabler, somebody who's right there. This is what we talked about last week when we talked about that codependent relationship. Mm-hmm. Other codependents, right? So if you're drawn to irresponsible people, you may be doing the following. See if this sounds like any of us. You pick up after them. You apologize to others for them. Your husband's sick and you have to call his employer and tell him he can't come in. He's not sick. He just, is overdosed or alcohol. Yep. You apologize to others for them. You make excuses for them. You give them chance after chance after chance. You pay for their sins and their forgetfulness. You nag them and you resent them. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to live in resentment. So many irresponsible people, though, their good side is they're caring and they're warm and they're fun-loving people. And, they're focusing on the moment, today. They're not worried about tomorrow. So they're not always anxious about tomorrow because they don't have to be. They're empathic, and understanding, right? Because they don't have to worry about tomorrow because they know you're going to come pick it up for them.
Yeah, I had an employee once who he was the sweetest guy in the world. Like he was just so sweet and so caring and so loving, and you could tell that he really cared about his clients. But if you walked into his office, holy cow, it was a disaster. And I remember when he left, we had to go in and clean his office out, and we found food and all kinds of stuff throughout the desks. And I'm like, dude, this is why you're so sick all the time. You're unhealthy and everything else. But he had a heart of gold, but he definitely did not take care of himself. And so when you would walk into his office, you were literally tripping and you were like trying to find a place to stand or to sit. And God forbid you have to give him a document. You're like, where do I put it? I don't want it to get lost.
Sounds like a hoarder. Hate to see his house, right? Yeah. Right? That's another addiction, right? That falls into that as well. Yeah. So you probably don't want to trust an irresponsible. If you're at work, you could have an important event coming up. They're doing the paperwork. They don't show up with it, and you lost a business deal, right? You could be waiting for them at a restaurant, and they never show up. You're just sitting there. So if you're providing the safety net for an irresponsible, you're enabling their irresponsibility.
Yeah.
So think about talking to a friend or an adult child or spouse or a business relationship. It happens in all of those areas. So just be aware of that. And are you that person? Are you the enabler? Are you the person who is irresponsible? And consider that. Reach out if you need help. You may be in a relationship with an abandoner, a critic, or an irresponsible. So in weeks ahead, if we wanted to continue on this topic, we could talk more in depth along these lines and about more specific character traits of unsafe people, even more so in the danger signals of the relationships and things along those lines. But before we end today's show, I wanted to put a more positive focus on the safer qualities in friendships, in business, and personal relationships. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
So some of the attributes I wrote down are acceptance and grace, mutual struggles. No one's superior than the other one. We all have struggles, right? Loving confrontation. We say the critic is always picking on somebody. Well, we're not looking for somebody to not hold us accountable. We need the accountability. But we need it given to us in a loving way, right? People who only praise you and never give you any faults, they're not loving you enough to let you know when your attitude's out of line or your behavior is becoming something that could drive you over a cliff. So it's important, if you love someone, that you have this loving confrontation. Fourth, outside support systems for both parties to avoid toxic dependency on each other. Because remember, we're drawn to somebody that we really love in a best friend or in a relationship, or maybe you have a best buddy at work. But if you're only spending time with that person and no one else, it becomes toxic. That's where we need that outside person, outside support systems, outside friends, outside associations that you're members with. So you have time apart. It's really critical. Separateness is the ability to maintain spiritual and emotional boundaries between you and others. Love withers and dies without separateness. So this is where enmeshment emphasizes similarities and discourages the differences in people. Safe people encourage, value, and nurture the separateness of each other. So here are things to look for when you're determining safety in this area.
Sorry, Candace, I had to mute for a minute because I could hear my grandchildren and I didn't want the feed to come through on here. They were kind of out of control.
Oh, didn't hear them at all.
Yeah, I muted it real quick.
You were fast. You were really fast. So I was just going to give some examples for determining safety when it talks about the support system, making sure we're not too tied in with other people. Do they respect my no when I state no, right? Because they could say, I had an example last week where I had a relationship and they would say, yeah, you should have a lot of friends. And I would set up dates with friends. And then they knew when this date was coming up. And then all of a sudden, like the day 2 days before or the day of, they'd say, oh, I want to do this thing that I've been wanting them to do with me for a long time. And I'm going to do it on this one day that I already had committed. And so I could easily then back out of my friendships and stay with this one person, which would be an enmeshment and a problem. So think about that. Do they respect my no when I state it? Do they withdraw emotionally when I say no?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big sign. Do they get hurt and make me feel guilty when I say no? Do they have interests, hobbies, and friends outside of me, separate from me?
Mm-hmm.
Do they encourage me to have a separate life as well? Do they, is familiarity with growth process? This is the next item on this list. Familiarity with the growth process. Safe people know that they are subject to change. They want to mature and grow over time. Unsafe people do not see their own problems, and they have no desire to change. They're very rigid and fixed, and they're not subject to growth. So I think it's really important, if you're into growth, that you're making sure that you're connecting with people who are growing. 6, mutual interest in chemistry. There's got to be some kind of attraction between you and the other person, so that when there is a disagreement or something, that you're drawn to fix it, right? That you like talking to this person. And that, again, that doesn't have to just be in a relationship or a spouse. It could be a colleague or work relationship. And then 7, and absence of one-ups and one-down dynamics. I have had people in my past who it always had to be one better than the other person. Yeah. In fact, in my 20s, somebody accused me of being that way, and I didn't have a clue. I guess she had bought a car and told me she bought a car, and it was a 2-door car, and whatever. Months went by, I bought a car, and I got a 4-door car because I had a kid. Well, oh my God, it was the same kind of car as hers, and I didn't even know that. And she said, "You're just one-upping me," and I was like, "What?" Wow. But maybe it was subconscious. I didn't know I did it. But both parties are in a relationship with God or a higher power. There's honesty and reality are embraced. So it's not, when they say you over spiritualize or you're spiritually bypass something because you're above that. It's not really that you're above it. You're just trying to be holier than thou, right? Mm-hmm. So honesty and reality are embraced. And then the last item was an absence of controlling behavior. Mm-hmm. Allow the other person to be themselves. Isn't that the best gift ever?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I had a relationship, again, back in my 20s where I really had to do what he wanted, or he was really upset. Ooh. And one day he even said, I said to her, "How do I look, honey? Do I look okay?" And he said, "Well, listen, I'll let you know if you don't look okay." And I was like, "Oh, that's not cool." And it kind of went that way a lot. And so I remember always leaving an event after we'd been in a group thinking, did I say something wrong? Is everything okay? Is he going to yell at me now? That's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, no way.
So it's really nice when you can just be yourself. Nobody's controlling you and they respect you. And so as a reminder, I just want to say nobody's perfect. We're all perfectly imperfect. And safe people will sometimes become unsafe for a period of time just because of life. So don't expect perfection from anybody around you or even from yourself, but instead measure someone's character in terms of the degree of healthiness. That's the key there.
Yep, absolutely.
It's one thing if a person lies and there's a white lie or they're trying not to hurt somebody's feeling, and versus a pathological liar. You see the degree there? Mm-hmm. You can have a lie of omission. I forgot to tell you something, well, you lied. No, I honestly forgot that piece, right? Mm-hmm. Versus somebody who's lying all the time. And then look for degrees of imperfection. And if a person's willing to change, forgive them, graciously work with them. If they resist you and refuse to change or embrace growth, that's a red flag, right? So proceed with caution. So the takeaway for this week, what's the takeaway?
We need to ponder on how we're showing up. How are we showing up with others?
Yeah.
What are we giving off to them to make them feel safe or are we making them feel unsafe? We also want to make sure that what our qualities are, that we're exhibiting those qualities the right way. So I would encourage everybody to go back and listen to this recording and listen to what the different types of people are. And let's see, Chris is saying, are your boundaries being tested or have they mounted a full-scale invasion? That's good. That's a good one. I wish we could pull that one up on the screen, but I don't have that capability on my end.
And he's probably on your page, right?
On your page.
So I can't see him.
These are all, yeah. So we'll work on that technical difficulty there. You know, guys, you have to understand something. Candace May and I are both Gen Zers, and so technology is not our greatest forte.
We're also in different states, and we're not next to each other.
So it's been a little challenging with learning how to do this stuff on technology, but I've absolutely had a fantastic time with it. But going back to the takeaway, please look at what your qualities are. Look at how you're showing up in people's lives. Do you want to be a safe person for them, or do you want to be an unsafe person to them? You know, how many unsafe people are in your life? How many people are safe in your life? And, you know, you got to start making some of those hard decisions.
Yeah, good, great. Well, I had a great time. I hope this is of value to all of you. Whether you're watching the recording or you're live, thanks for being here. Drop us a note, private message Mary Denise or Candace May, and we'll get back with you. We love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And we appreciate that you stayed on. I know we went a little bit long tonight and we started late again, technology.
We started late. Yeah, we did.
We really appreciate that you stuck it out with us this long, and we can't wait to see you next week. And again, if you have any topics that you would like us to talk about, please send us a note so that we can tailor our programming to you. This is not about Candace May and I. This is about you, our listeners, and we want to give you exactly what you need to help make your life better.
Exactly.
That's great.
We're here to serve you,
friends. Yes, Chris. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
What Chris say?
Chris said content will be inviting friends.
Yay! Great job. Okay. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.